Hi, and welcome to the Soundtrap for Education Educator Crash Course with a podcast focus. I'm Taylor, an education specialist, and I'm going to help you get started. In this video, we're going to cover 3 basic things. The first is getting your account set up, as well as your students' accounts. Then we're going to talk about studio basics, and then help you get started with your podcast. So the first thing that you'll want to do is obviously create your account, and then you'll invite students. In order to create your account, you should go to soundtrap.com/edu and select Start as Teacher. It should look something like this. Click that Start as Teacher button, and you'll get this screen, which you can fill out and create your account. Once you've created your account, you'll want to invite your students. This is a really important step, and I encourage you to do this right away. So you'll go to the EDU admin tab, select Import Users, and choose your method. And it looks like this. You can see that first arrow pointing to EDU admin and the orange button for importing users, which will bring you to this screen. You can either share that link, or you can use one of the other options that we have here in order to get your students invited. Now that you've created your account and student accounts, it's important to know how assignments work. So assignments are best for individual projects because it creates a copy for each student, so they have their own copy. It puts you as a collaborator, and it creates a new folder and puts all those copies into that folder. In order to create an assignment, you'll need to create a project. So even if it's blank, you need to make a new project. And then from your My Projects page, you can click these 3 dots and say Create Assignment, which will bring up the assignment dialog, and it's just going to remind you that it's going to create a folder. You can choose to share through Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, or with a link. If you use the link, you can just copy that link, and whenever your students click that link, we'll create a new copy for them and put that in the new folder. You can see your assignment folders underneath your projects. If I close my projects folder, and then I can scroll down and see my assignments, and inside this assignment folder, I can see 3 different copies, where 3 different students are collaborators, and they have their own copy where I am also a collaborator on that project. So if I click the studio button, I can open it up and see everything that they've created. Or I can just click right here and get an audio preview of what they've created so far. Now that you've seen how to create an assignment, which is best for individual assignments, let's look at the other way to share projects, which is through group collaboration. In order to make a group project, you'll use the invite feature and invite each member to that project. You can do this from outside the studio by clicking on these 3 dots and saying invite. Then I can type in the name of my partner or a student that I want to invite and invite them to the project. And I can invite as many students as I want. Just type their names in and send them the invite. And that's how I can create a group project. You can also invite from inside the studio. In order to do that, you'll want to come to this blue circle, open up the collaboration tab, click the plus sign, and then type in the names of your students or other teachers you want to add, and invite them. In this next section, we're going to look at the studio basics. So we're going to get a quick tour of the Soundtrap studio, talk about the recording basics and podcast basics to get you ready to start your podcast. All right, time to get into the studio. So I'm just here on my projects page, and I can click Enter Studio, and that will bring me into the Soundtrap studio. And it's going to show me this template option. I've got the choice between a music template or a podcast template. For now, I'm going to go ahead and choose podcast. And the only difference between these 2 templates are at the top, if I choose a podcast, you'll see that this timeline is in seconds and minutes. Whereas if I chose music, it would be in musical beats and measure numbers. Then the other difference is my microphone by default with a podcast will have no effects on it. Those are the 2 main differences. So now let's take a second and just do a quick tour of the studio so you can see what all the buttons do. So I'm going to start on the top right, and I'm going to kind of work my way clockwise. So the first things to notice are these purple and blue buttons. The purple button is the loops tab, where we have all our different loops, so you can find all these different instruments and styles of music as little musical bits. And then below that, you've got the collaboration tab. This is where I can invite either students or other teachers or people that I want to collaborate with by clicking this button. And then I can invite them with their name or with an email. And then when they come into the project, I can chat with them here in this window. And then moving down, I've got the zoom in and zoom out buttons. And then I've got down here, I've got the controls for the metronome, so I can turn the metronome on and off. Click the gear to change the count in, the volume of the metronome, or the sound of the metronome right there. Here I have tempo, so this is a speed, and I can change it up and down. I can type it in, whatever I want. Right here, I've got all my transport controls, so record, go back to the beginning, rewind, play, and pause, and go forward. And here we've got a time code, so you can see where we are. Like if I move it to right here, we can see we're 7.2 seconds into this song or podcast. And then here I've got a master volume control. And then I've got the ability to go to transcripts. More on this later, but you can see that's where you would access it. And then up here on the top left, I've got the option to add a new track. So I can click that, and I've got all these different types of tracks I can add. I can add a voice and microphone if I want to record something, or I've got all these software instruments I can do, or I can do a guitar and bass amp if I want to plug in my guitar or my bass. I can also import a file, and that could be an audio file or a MIDI file. That is just about it for the studio tour. Hopefully that gives you a general idea of where things are, and now we can dive into more detail on what they all do. In this section, I'm going to talk Recording 101 and walk you through a couple tips and terms. So the number one rule of recording is to always wear headphones. And headphones are important because they eliminate spill and feedback. Spill is when you pick up unwanted sound, and feedback is when you have this nasty sound produced when the mic is picking up the speaker sound. And feedback kind of sounds like this. Another tip is to always record in a quiet space, free of disruptions and noise as much as possible. Also, always do a sound check to avoid clipping. Clipping is distortion caused when the microphone signal is too loud. It sounds like this.
This audio is clipping. This audio is not.
Another important term is monitoring, and monitoring allows you to hear in real time what's being recorded. So with Soundtrap, we have a simplified monitoring system, and if you say you're using headphones, we'll turn monitoring on, and if not, we'll turn monitoring off. Keep in mind, you can always manually adjust this, but this is how we address the monitoring question. All right, so before we look at how to make a podcast, let's learn a little bit about what a podcast is. So technically, a podcast is an audio program with recurring releases or episodes. But in our cases with Soundtrap for Education, a better definition would probably be an audio project that facilitates project-based learning and improves listening comprehension, expression, and creativity. Podcasts usually include voice recordings, but don't always, because there's so many different ways to use podcasting in your classroom. Podcasting can be relevant for all subjects, and I'd encourage you to check out some example podcast projects on our EDU blog. Here you can see a couple examples of how teachers around the world are using podcasts with their students, but I'd encourage you to read yourself on edublog.soundtrap.com to learn more and get more specific context. I'd also encourage you to use model podcasts that you might find on Spotify or on other podcasting platforms so that your students can see real-world examples and have a context for how podcasts can share information and cultivate learning. So that's just a quick introduction to podcasts, what they are, and how they can be used in the classroom. I'd encourage you to research and learn more, but for now, let's look at how to make podcasts. In this video, I'm going to walk us through just the basics of recording, basically setting up your microphone, and a couple of the controls for recording. So the first thing I want to do, now that I'm in a blank project, is click Add New Track, say Voice and Microphones, and so now I've added that track, and we can see it right here. I could label it, so I might label this Mr. Hahn, and now before I'm ready to record, I have to make sure that Soundtrap is listening to the correct microphone. So to do that, I click this button right here, or this menu. In case you don't see this, in case you see something like this, come over here to this little microphone button, click that, and that will show the instrument or show the microphone. So now if I click on this will show me all my different options. Normally you'll just be using your built-in microphone, but I'm going to go ahead and use my nice fancy Snowball, which is a USB microphone. And I'm almost ready to go, but I want to be super sure that my volume and my levels are going to be correct. So I can click this little button, which is my volume check. And I can say start test, and I'm just talking normally about how loud I'm going to talk, testing 1, 2, 3, and Soundtrap sets the level. Cool, good to go. And now I'm just going to drag this back, come down here and click record. So now I'm ready to record. I'm going to click the start recording button and it's going to give me a count in. Keep in mind, it's not recording until that count in is done. As soon as it's done, you're off to the races. So here we go. Hey everyone, Mr. Hahn here. So we're going to take today and tomorrow to get comfortable with some basics of Soundtrap. We're going to work with loops and voice recording. Make sure to check your projects page to join the projects that I've invited you to. And I hope you enjoy making music with loops and recording your voice. Send me a message in the chat window if you have any questions or just want to show off your new creation. And there we go. I've made my voice recording. I can see it right here. And I can click save. And now I'm ready to share that with my students. If you're ready to export, you'll need to save, and then you'll notice this right here. This download button is going to change, and it's going to say mixing. So Soundtrap is in the background going to do some audio magic to mix and master this project and create an MP3 that you can then download. So it usually takes a minute or two to do that, and then you'll be able to click this button. So now it's done mixing, and I can click this button, and that will download my file. For me, it's downloading as a WAV, but you can always come in here and you can say export and you can choose an MP3 file if you would prefer that. And there's one other way you can do it. If for some reason you want to export just one track and not the whole entire thing, you can do that. So I can go to this track, click these 3 buttons, and I can export that track. And then that will just export only this track right here. So if you want to download the whole thing, the final product, you download with this button. And if you want to just download a certain track, you can go to that track and then choose your export option from here. And that's it. Now that you've created your accounts and your student accounts and know some of the basics about assignments, the studio, and recording, I'd like to show you one example, and then it's your turn to start your podcast. With this curriculum connection video, I want to take a few minutes to shift our focus away from the technical aspects of Soundtrap and to look at more of the curriculum connections and the ways that you can use Soundtrap inside your classroom. So we're going to look at how you can use Soundtrap to address social emotional learning competencies. And you may have seen this before and you probably have heard a lot about SEL. Today in this video, we're just going to look at self-awareness. And the exercise is a super simple one, high, low, surprise. And I've got an example of it in Soundtrap that we can look at now, and you're welcome to use this example with your students. I'd love it if you would share your experience with other educators in the Soundtrap for Education Facebook group, and you can obviously check that out on Facebook, and it looks something like this. And we'd love to see you in there, along with a bunch of other teachers from around the world that are using Soundtrap and sharing their story and their experience. So let's take a look at this example project in Soundtrap. Hey everyone, it's Mr. Hahn here. I'm really excited for you to be getting started with Soundtrap. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's assignment, Creating with Loops. I've been loving listening to your songs. Today, we're going to do a simple exercise of self-reflection as a way for you to continue to get comfortable with Soundtrap. This exercise is something we used to do at the dinner table when I grew up with my family. It's called Highlight, Lowlight, Surprise. You just pick a day to reflect on, either today or yesterday, and share your highlight, your favorite or best part of your day, a low light, your least favorite part of the day, and a surprise, something that you didn't expect. This will be due tomorrow, and since I've already created an assignment in Soundtrap, and I'm already a collaborator, all you'll need to do to turn it in is just hit save, and then text me in the chat to let me know that you're done. Your voice recording is the only thing that's required today, but if you want, you can add music and sound effects to help capture the mood and tone of your day. Let me know if you have any questions by typing in the chat window on the right side of the screen. I've included an example of my own high-low surprise from yesterday just to make sure you understand the assignment. So you'll just need to make a new track and record yourself talking through your high-low surprise on that new track. Have fun! Here's my highlight, lowlight surprise. My highlight was playing music for my friends in their backyard. David, Abby, and Olivia listened to me play my handpan, and we all had a really great time just hanging out together and sharing music. My low light was that my computer crashed while I was working on a new video, so I lost a bunch of work and I had to redo it. Ugh. My surprise was my friend Carlos reached out and we got to talk. I hadn't seen him in over a year, and it was a nice surprise to talk and laugh together. Thanks so much for watching this crash course. I hope it was helpful for you. If you want to continue learning, you can take our Certified Educator course, or if you want to share a similar course with your students, you can do so with this link. We also have the Soundtrap for Education blog, where we're sharing stories and projects and lesson plans and all kinds of useful resources on there, so check that out. And then we also have the Soundtrap for Education Facebook group, which we'd love to invite you to be a part of. Here we have Soundtrap teachers from around the world sharing their ideas and problem solving together. If you have any other questions or need some support, reach out to us at support@soundtrap.com and we'd be happy to help you out. Thanks for watching.